On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk about positioning automation partners, a plumber's RMR, and a rapid improvement plan for your business. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 156, More Abilities.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Crestron.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott, for AVNation.tv, and today I'm pleased to be joined by one of my longtime friends, Jeremy Glowacki. He is the executive editor of Residential Tech Today. How are you, sir?
Doing well today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I was just in your lovely town there.
I saw that. Yeah. Sorry we couldn't connect, but I know you're busy.
My schedule was a mess, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But such is life. Then we have my good friend, Tim Albright. He is the founder of AVNation.tv. How are you, sir?
I am well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm pleasantly awaiting the snowfall that is not falling. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, Jimmy and I in the Midwest are waiting on, Jimmy's in Indy, I'm in St. Louis, waiting on, our first negative temperatures of the year. So.
Oh, Indy had them last week.
Did he? Okay.
It was stinking cold. But with that fun intro about weather, let's jump right into our first story today. This comes to us from Residential Systems and one of my good pals, Todd Anthony Puma, how they position their automation partners to their clients. If you've been following this lovely series of posts, Todd has got together with one of his business partners, Mark Feinberg, and they have wrote about their respective automation partners, Control4 for Mark and Crestron for Todd, and talked about why they are the right choice for both them in their business, but also, and arguably more importantly, for their customers in their businesses. They go through quite a number of really good points. And Jeremy, let's start with you on this one. One of the things I liked about this was it didn't get into the nitty gritty, which is what we as integrators always seem to do when we start talking about our favorite, put whatever you want to put in that blank. Specifically with automation, I have seen really good friends go toe to toe over their automation platform, more so than any other product out there. When you're looking at, your automation platforms and you're trying to talk to your client about that, where is the key there? Is it just to talk positivity about that platform and just make sure that no matter what happens, you don't ever talk negative about another vendor, even when your client may bring that up?
I think the biggest challenge right now is not this automation provider versus that automation provider, but just why an automation provider at all. And I'm not saying that I agree with that sensibility because I'm from this industry and I think that automation systems are awesome, but general consumers are probably, so IoT, overload with what they read and what they see in the, local Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever it is, somewhat simple little systems that they think that's the way that their home should go. And if they don't have the capability, especially in a larger home, to really pull that off. So I think the features that are listed, this brand versus that brand, they all kind of match up pretty well. So I think it's really it's about the reliability. It's about the interoperability between systems. It's about not having to jump from one app to another. All the things that he's listing here are features of why an automation system, not why Crestron versus Control4 or Savant. I think that he makes a really good case for the features of an automation system. And I think that, certain parts are obviously going to, stand out better than others, like the user control, the aspect of being able to make changes yourself as the end user after the system is in place. I think that for a long time was just a troublesome aspect of an automation system. It was so locked down with programming. Any little tweak would have to require a call to the integrator. Now you're getting a little bit away from that. I think that's a big plus with these automation systems. They're not so locked down anymore. They're locked down enough where you can't really screw them up, but you still have the flexibility to make adjustments to your lighting control, your scenes and channel guide and things like that. So I think that's where you get into conversations with certain consumers. Like, what you used to hear about these things, it's not all true anymore. And we also have been doing this a long time. Our partner is very, in tune with, answering our calls, blah, 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 the things that a good dealer is going to have with their manufacturer. I think those are good keys to selling an automation system.
Very good. Tim, when you listen to what Jeremy said, coming back to a couple of those things like scalability and interoperability and flexibility and more abilities than we can think of, is it really those feature sets that appeal to the end user? Is it one specific one that's more important than the other? Or is it really a question for the dealer and how the dealer presents themselves and then the products that they use? Does the automation platform really matter that much in the end?
You asked like 3 or 4 questions, so I'm going to try to take them in order. Number one, I think that the client cares about the aesthetics. You're talking about residential here, right? One thing that Rich Fregosa has tried to teach me for years is selling automation in resi is so much more difficult than selling it in commercial. Because in residential, you are on par with the interior decorator, or you're connected with the interior decorator, because those touch panels, especially the graphical user interface, or the GUI ones, can be customized so much that they then impact the look and feel of the interior decor. So you've got all of that going on. So they care about what it looks like and the fact that it works, and it just works. And hundreds of guests on this program have said that 1,000 times. It just has to work. So it just has to work. So it has to be stable. Let's talk about that for a second. The system itself, the underlying feature sets of the processor that takes the ins and outs, has got to be stable. If it's not, if it's constantly crashing or constantly needing updated, then it's going to get ripped out really, really quickly. I think the flexibility is becoming increasingly important. We saw that with Control4 adding their when-then feature that allowed customers, the actual end users, the homeowners, to adjust schedules and adjust certain automation processes. That was a year and a half ago at CEDIA 2017. That gives the client, the homeowner, a little bit more flexibility and the ability to adjust things. So as Jeremy said, you don't have to call a tech, you don't have to call a programmer back out.
Very good. Let's move on to our next story of the day. This is from CE Pro and RMR. Service plan success story, believe it or not, in plumbing. Jason Knott interviewed a San Diego HVAC and plumbing company that's charging a $20 a month VIP Advantage member program for its clients. I honestly can say that I did not expect to see this when it came across my feed. RMR and plumbing is not something that I've ever really looked to and said, ooh, that's what I want to, focus and model my custom integration firm on, is plumbing. But needless to say, this firm in San Diego has figured it out. Their clients pay $19.90 a month for an annual plumbing, heating, and air conditioning membership. What this gives them is safety, peace of mind through annual tune-ups and inspections, savings on everyday plumbing, no emergency service fees, priority service, and it's transferable. So this really, once I read it and once I wrapped my head around it, it really caught my eye. Tim, I want to come back and start with you on this one. We've been saying that we need RMR in this industry for years. We've been told to model the security industry. That's kind of sucked. We've been told to model the IT company. We've been kind of terrible at doing that. It hasn't worked very well. When I read this lovely story from Jason here, what really stuck out to me is this is a really simple program. There's next to nothing in this. It's pretty basic. It gives them a quick little, hey, you need a new furnace filter. Hey, we're going to send somebody out and check your AC. It's not overly complicated. Is this what we've been missing so long in this industry? A RMR plan that's just simple?
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing, and this is going to be somewhat pessimistic. This is simple, right? It's simple and it works, and we're going to suck at doing this one too. Simply because I think that there's a good percentage of, not the vast majority, but a good percentage of folks who still don't have wrapped around their heads what recurring revenue is and how to sell it. And that's really the key here. You're selling peace of mind. You're selling VIP access. You're selling, if you've ever been to Disney or any other theme park, you're selling line jumper access, right? To where you guarantee that X, Y, and Z is going to happen when the client picks up the phone and says, hey, something's wrong. But the other part of that is you're also selling the peace of mind that if something's wrong, you as the integrator, you as the Resi dealer are going to know about it before they are. And that goes back to some monitoring and network access. I'm a big believer in, I don't care whose you use, I really don't. I'm a big believer in making sure that you as the dealer, the folks who actually put the stuff in and, commission this system, you understand what's going on that system, and you're alerted before they are, hopefully, and you're able to fix it before they ever know anything's wrong. There's several systems out there that do that. It's, some of them are subscription based, some of them are based on hardware. Depends on where you are and who you're a dealer for. But I'm a big fan of that, because then you really have something to sell them. You can say, look, here's, client X, Y, and Z that I've been able to, solve a problem before they ever let me know, before they ever knew. I was able to say, hey, Jeremy, your system was offline. We were able to reset it, and you should be back. You should be back to going. Stuff like that goes a long way in making it feel better at the end of the month when you see that charge.
Jeremy, I love what Tim's saying, but I think that's the reason right there why we continually get this wrong. For $20 a month, we cannot manage even the paperwork of running, a biannual site visit to check stuff out, and keeping on top of everything from a remote management standpoint. Is it a two-tier approach that we need to look at? Is this one of those things that we're just going to continue to suffer with until Verizon or someone else outside of our industry comes in and takes it over from us?
I think that the third-party organizations that have cropped up, One Vision Resources is one of them. The other one is the symbol is an umbrella. What is it called? Parasol. Mm-hmm. Those companies, I think those are the key, and others like them, where you have a triage kind of operation that is monitoring the system. They go through that first level of client engagement, system monitoring, that sort of thing. So you can just sort of offload that until it gets to the need of you running a truck out there. I think that's really where the key is. A lot of the pushback also that I've heard from companies about not doing service plans is that our clients spent so much money on this system. It's so hard for us to then go, hey, it's going to break. This thing that you just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on is going to break. And as much as there's such a great pushback of like, how many electronics do you know that don't, hold up? How many times has your network crashed, even in the office? Things like that. There are going to be reboot needs of, network-based systems. So making that case is pretty simple. You're right at managing it is a more difficult part. I think what's different from a plumbing company, by the way, HVAC and plumbing together is really interesting to me because I've never heard of those as a blend.
Really?
Oh, really? I haven't.
That's normal up here.
That's a normal thing? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I think the difference with that is that it's a lot of break fix kind of sensibility. People don't think about their plumbing until they need to get it fixed, until, you know, they've got a clogged drain, they've got a leak, HVAC, your system isn't cooling or heating. There's a different, and as soon as you go through that, someone says, hey, we can put you on a service plan so you don't ever have to go without heat again. We're going to be right out there, like, you know, immediately, because you know, have the special setup. I have an irrigation company that's selling annual service contracts now. They're charging $39 a month, so that's a lot of money for something that you use for 3 months, you know. I didn't sign up for it, by the way. I'll take my chances on doing the repair myself, but I just think that those industries are a little different than the electronics business, where yeah, your network can go down any day of the week. You're not going to have plumbing leaks that often, I wouldn't imagine. You're not going to have HVAC issues that often. But it's that one time a year, or maybe not even one time every 3 to 5 years, that you want to have that peace of mind, I suppose. So I think our industry is a lot different, but I do think there are options with those third-party companies.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our next story of the day. It's kind of comical that you mentioned Parasol, because one of their co-founders is Henry Clifford, who's a good friend of mine out of Virginia, and his company Livewire. He's one of the founding members of Parasol, and he wrote this next article, which is on residential systems. Big improvement plan, the rapid improvement plan doing the job right the first time. Essentially, if you've been following Henry, he's been a great writer for quite a long time, and this is a follow-up on a story that he first started back in October, when he was beginning to look at ways to eliminate those quick runbacks to a job to finish up something that you probably should have done right the first time. They went through a bunch of their daily trips and what their people in the field were doing, and discovered that they were taking a ton of trips to places like Lowe's and Home Depot to pick up something that they probably should have had in the truck in the first place. So they went back, started a really good thing. If you haven't read about his RIP Rapid Improvement Plan, go back and check that out. The link will be in the story. Long and short, when they were looking back at Q1 in 2018, they found that they spent 280 man hours going back to fix jobs that should have been done right the first time. When they look at the way they value their hours, et cetera, it means that they lost $32,000 in the first 3 months. Let me say that again. That's $32,000 in the first quarter of 2018. In most of our states, provinces, countries, et cetera, that's a tech for a year. That's an entry-level tech for a year they spent in a truck going to Lowe's or Home Depot. But I like Home Depot a little more, so I said Lowe's. We're not getting sponsored by Lowe's. More importantly, that means that over the course of a year, they're losing $128,000 that they should have been able, and hopefully that would have been billable time. That's a huge loss. So as he went through this, he found a couple of things, and they were greatly able to reduce that and get more than a 20% savings on that, getting it somewhere in the neighborhood of, they saved 140 hours at the end of the quarter by that, is the goal that they're going for. So, Jeremy, I want to come back and start with you on this. This is a huge, let's be honest, this is a huge loss. This is a lot that is going to have to be, knocked off the bottom line for Henry's company. But this is not a problem that's specific to Henry. This is something that I can guarantee you every one of our companies has. My company has this problem. Is there an issue within our industry where most business owners do not take the time to review this kind of medial data to determine where they're losing money? Is this something that is just, something that happens to Henry, or is this something that is widespread, rampant across the board, where we don't really know what's going on in our businesses on a day-to-day basis?
I think that it's probably more common than, than most companies would like to acknowledge. I don't have obviously any specific data, but it's very common to hear folks who don't even have weekly meetings with their teams, for instance, their management teams. That's kind of a new thing. You go to a buying group meeting and they talk about these management styles where you do these meetings, and it seems pretty basic to me that you would want to do that. But I think with the flow of jobs that we deal with, especially when times are good, like right now with the economy, there's so much work, so much rushing to the job. No one actually comes into the home base. They go straight to the job in the morning, if they're on an integration crew. So the fact that there wouldn't be a process or a policy for coming back and doing inventory on a truck or a van, I could see that being probably fairly likely that could happen. That could get backed up on a company. And there's really no time just to stop and assess and work on the business and figure out a way that the crews have to come in and do inventory management, go to Lowe's and pick up what they need once a week for whatever it is, and make sure that they have more than they're going to need so that they're never short. There's probably just a lot of companies that just haven't stopped long enough to really assess and to fix problems. So yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of money being lost, I'm sure, throughout the industry.
Tim, Jeremy had a fantastic point there. We don't take the time to stop and work on the business. I had this conversation last week at some meetings I was at, that is one of the big differences that I've always seen in residential versus commercial. And again, this is not a blanket statement across the board. There's not a single resi business or a residential integrator that knows how to work on his business. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm posturing is that this is the trend that I've seen. You've kind of followed and reported, worked in both industries from the media standpoint now for 4 or 5 years. How do integrators in the residential space, who are normally, let's kind of be fair, may not be the best at working on their business, how do they learn to do that? How do they learn to invest the time required in their business to grow and be profitable going forward, not just how to go find the next job? How do you look beyond that?
You have to show them the value, right? You have to show them how that helps their bottom line, because a good percentage of dealers, both resi and commercial, honestly, could be placed in the small to medium sized business arena, right? And a lot of those folks, when you are looking at paying 5 or 10 salaries, you have to look for the next job. A lot of times the owner is also the chief salesperson, the head of sales, or there's some sort of business development where they're constantly trying to churn up, and so they don't see the value in sitting down once a week or once a month and strategizing and actually working on the business. You have to show them that value. And for that, I look at conferences and resources. I look at stuff like NSCA's BLC, which is, if you're a member of NSCA, in a couple of weeks I'm going to be hanging out with the folks at PSNI, again, another group of folks who get together and talk about the business. CEDIA had the business exchange, right? We actually able to sit down and talk about not technology, right? Not, the latest whiz bang IoT, this, that, and the other. How do you hire people, right? How do you fire people? How do you make sure that your employees are progressing in their career? How do you deal with, cash flow and how do you drum up new business? Not drumming up the new business, but how do you do it, right? And how do you, do things like, social media and other stuff like that? I think it's incredibly valuable, but I think you need to really illustrate to them how that impacts their bottom line. Otherwise, they're not going to see the return on investment, and they're not going to spend the money nor the time.
So who's the one who is the you have to show them person? How do they figure that out? Because yeah, there's trade associations. Yeah, there's buying groups. Yeah, there's all this other stuff. What do you do for the integrator who doesn't have a really close relationship for someone, or more, I guess the better question is, what would you recommend to the integrator who's listening or watching this, who doesn't know where to go, who doesn't know where to get that business acumen? Because if this is really hitting home for them, they don't have it.
Yeah, so no, it's a good question. Slight bit of self-promotion, because we've got a show that our AV profession that talks about the business of AV. The folks at Navigate have helped us with that, as well as where we interview business leaders. Jeremy has written about it. Other magazines have written about some really good business practices. Look at folks like Vern Harnish, right? Vern Harnish is an entrepreneur and a guy that looks at the analytics of business, and he's done a study. His latest book is Scaling Up, where he looks at the most profitable businesses of the last 50 or 60 years and kind of dissects what made them profitable. One of my business mentors, guy owns an integration firm here in St. Louis, has said to me, he goes, if you're not spending between at least 30 minutes a day reading and improving yourself on your business, then what you're doing is a hobby. Understand that. What you're doing is a hobby. If you're not improving yourself and not improving your business, not your technical acumen, but working on your business, at least 30 minutes a day, it's a hobby. And it took me a long time to understand that and realize that. And we're a small business here. I mean, it's, and so I spend at least 30 minutes a day reading something that impacts our business and opens me up to new ideas. Currently, right now, I'm actually reading a buddy of ours' books, Dan. Name just went on my head. I'm
not helping you.
I know you're not,
because he's listening.
He is. The name of the book is Building Dragons, and it talks about the difference between unicorn, which in the tech world is that one business that shoots through the roof and is incredibly profitable, but more than that, building the dragons that are in it for the long haul and can really be disruptive.
Excellent. That's a very good point. If you are interested in that, definitely check those out, or shoot any one of us, but me if you want, a message, and I will happily help send you some of that information. Thank you, gentlemen. I think we're going to have to wrap there, but thank you so much for joining us. Jeremy, if people want to connect with you, learn more about residential tech today, where can they go and do that?
We are trying to build up our subscriptions right now for our bi-monthly print publication. So please go to restechtoday.com and subscribe to the magazine, and check us out online.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Tim, if people want to connect with you, follow everything we do at AVNation, follow you bemoaning the Blues not playing well at hockey.
Nope. That
hockey, where can they do that?
By the way, the guy's name is Dan Newman. He old AV guy. He's
totally going to shoot you.
He's totally going to shoot me. TD at Tim David Albright on the Twitters.
Excellent. Thank you again for joining us. For myself, if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter. And more importantly, please take a moment to stop by AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek. Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all... What? That was good.
It was. I was not reading this time.
Yeah, that's what I thought.